the more risk you're able to absorb, as long as you're doing your homework and you're, like Nate said, it's an educated risk, but the reward, right? So I wouldn't took the risk I took, now that I took back then. You're definitely going to fall. And if you're doing it right, you will fall.
On this episode of A Call to Leadership, I can't wait for you to join Travis, Sam, and myself for this Business Monday, part 2 of our series on success. We left off with the pain of falling down, but getting back up. What's next? How do we fight the good fight? What does it really look like to be truly fulfilled and looking at another day as I am ready to conquer it? I can't wait for you to listen in. I'm Dr. Nate Salah, and this is A Call to Leadership. It's not going to be easy. Some aspects of it will be simple. Some of it will be complicated. But if you find the right people around you and you actually provide goods and services that have tremendous market value innovatively, right? And stay in the grind, there's a possibility. But honestly, let's talk about the odds. Odds are against you.
Against you.
Right?
Correct.
That you're going to be successful first shot out. It's just, look, how many people, right? Bat 1,000. How many babies, we're talking about families, right? Walk their first time after standing up? Zero.
I mean, if you can hit 3 out of 10 baseballs, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah.
You're in the Hall of Fame, but you failed
absolutely.
70% of the time.
Yeah.
Like you have failed 70% of the time, and you are in the Hall of Fame. So that's an elite athlete.
So
right?
we say something in when the kids are doing, their drills in hockey, we'll do these edge work and skating drills and things like that. And if the kids are falling, we know they're trying.
Yeah.
If you're not falling,
Interesting.
you're not trying.
Interesting.
So the kids that
Can't find your edge.
they don't push themselves to the point where they feel uncomfortable, which the drill is uncomfortable, and the kids that are really trying to do it right will fall. If you open a business or become an entrepreneur, you will fall if you're really trying.
Yeah.
I love that. In fact, it reminds me of a story. I don't know if I told you guys this story, but Abram would fall a lot when he was little, and he would just cry like most kids do.
Right.
And I just felt so bad for him. I mean, because he was trying to run, he was trying to do all this stuff, and he'd take some hits. And I started telling him, he would be crying, and I'd hold him and I'd say, son, every fall you get up from is a good fall.
Yep.
And he'd like, Dad, why are you patronizing me? He wouldn't say that because there's a big word, but something along those lines. I'm like, no, son, it's not just physical. It's spiritual. It's emotional. It's mental. Get up from the fall. And the fact that you're falling in the first place, I love that. I never even thought to consider that you actually went all out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's a sign. I mean, it's
Now you don't want. Here's the flip side of that is you don't want a listener saying, "Well, I'm just going to go all out and just do." You don't want to not be prudent and not be discerning and not be planning, right? You don't want to just do crazy stuff that is going to get you in huge trouble that you can't recover from, right? I mean, because there is wisdom involved in it, right?
Yeah.
That's why we have others around us that can help us vet the fall, right? But still take the shot.
yeah.
Take the shot.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I do think that no one goes out to fall. We obviously that's not the goal, but at the end of the day, I think if you're really bought into your vision, you will risk it all.
Well, back to Musk. How
You
many
will risk
rockets?
it all.
How many rockets?
I did. I would.
Fail?
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
And his ideas are
He was on
beyond
the end.
yeah.
I think he had that last rocket, if I remember correctly. He's like, if this fails, we're done. Like there's no more money. No one wants to give us any more money for I think it was the third or fourth.
Yeah.
And they're like super expensive. I can't remember the dollar amount, but to get the reusable rockets.
Yeah.
So to your point, right? I mean, it's thought out. It's well documented. It's very prudent. But he still fell and fell and fell. But I think there was even an understanding that it's quite possible. It's going to take us 3 or 4 shots, and I just pray
That one of those last shots works.
It's not for everybody, man. It's not for everybody. I always say entrepreneurship it's best to do it when it's yourself, before you have, a large family that you have to, because then you have to start recalculating risk becomes more of a,
it's more risk.
risk. Yeah. So I think, if you're going to get into it, I think that you can get into it at any stage in life, but obviously the more risk you're able to absorb, as long as you're doing, your homework and you're, like Nate said, it's an educated risk, but the reward, right? So I wouldn't took the risk I took, now that I took, back then. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely, you're definitely going to fall. And if you're doing it right, you will fall.
And another part of that is even like the added the family. I mean, yeah, it's easier certainly when you don't have the family, but I remember I got married in 2001 and I had been in business for 6 years. And I distinctly remember when I got married, and one of the top things on my mind, besides the honeymoon and all this other stuff, was like, well, I'm going to have to get off of Raymond and Aldi bologna. Like, it's not going to work anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't default to that when I'm out of cash now that I'm married. Mm-hmm. And so like it's flipped the script on me, and I actually had to double down and be like, you got to take this stuff seriously.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's game time now.
Yeah. No, I agree, right? Like, I think that it's a double-edged sword, right? Risk is risk, and we all have to be aware of risk. But also, right, the motivating factor of me, like, for me, right, to know, like, I have a family to provide for, right? Like, I've got, private school to do, you know what I mean? Like, there's all this stuff, and it's like, there's no room for failure. And if it is a failure, right, like, I have to be able to rebound quick. You know what I mean? And so your mind starts thinking, and I do think that stops you from taking the crazy risks, right? Like, because
which you enjoyed, and you probably were high on that risk.
I love the crazy risks.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not like, now we're not saying that, but it's when you talk about the process and how you've kind of been formed, and obviously now that you're taking a risk, I mean, you're a tenured entrepreneur, so there is less risk for you because you have experience.
I've failed enough to know what works and what doesn't in the particular thing.
And you're not going to risk more than what you can absorb.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. So,
but the family adds another dynamic to it. And I think that's important to like have that conversation because, like, I mean, back to the shiny object stuff and like the smoke, all the smoke and mirrors, like there's other parts of this conversation that we need to have with the entrepreneur who wants to 10x or 100x or 1,000x, right? Is that those factors make a difference too in how I approach entrepreneurship. And marriages fail, guys. I mean, I hate to even say it, but like I've seen it on my end from the accounting and advisory side. Like, I mean, it's not directly, the business did it, but it certainly is a factor, right? So you gotta think all that through. Yeah. And it's not necessarily like a deterrent to entrepreneurship, right? Because when it works,
it's great.
You need a supportive partner to be successful.
Yeah. For you and me, Sam, we started entrepreneurship beforehand. And of course you had an entrepreneurial spirit and your spouse was on board.
Mm-hmm. She pushed me.
She's an entrepreneur.
She pushed me.
Yeah, because she's a hard charger.
Yeah. She was the one who was like, you need to stop making corporate America so much money. Like, you need to do this.
That's my gal. Right? Yeah, man.
Like, Laura's an A player, man.
Yeah,
she's always been that way.
And she does it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's an entrepreneur.
That's great, man.
Well, I mean, when you have even an entrepreneur family, I'm starting to think about it as we talk about this. It's pretty stinking cool.
Yeah, no, it's cool, right? Like my kids are like, so what? So sometimes they're like, well, what do you guys do? You know what I mean? Like, because it's so hard to like wrap it up. Like, what?
Oh, dude, it's the most difficult question anyone asks me. Like, I just had this conversation with someone the other day. It's just like, first thing they ask you. Yeah. Oh yeah, what do you do? I mean, if you don't mind me asking, I'm like, oh.
I know.
That
so
what do you do?
So this is what I do. I say I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm involved in a lot of different things, and that's where I typically leave it.
Yeah.
Just hit the 30,000 foot view.
Because this is a rabbit hole.
Right. Like, how much time do you have? Right. You got a couple hours, and it's like, in on the same token, like, people want to know, but they don't really want to know. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to know everything, you know? So, but like my kids are at that age to where like, you know, like their friends' parents do A, B, and C, right? Like they're a doctor or they're a lawyer or they're whatever, right? And they're like, what do you guys do? Like you're gone weird hours, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you're home, sometimes you're gone, like you're always on phone calls. Like, what do you do? And like trying to explain that is challenging.
I think that I use cereal at the beginning because it's you initially think crazy.
Yeah.
Right? That's your initial thought. Serial entrepreneur. He's, you know, there's entrepreneurs out there who are entrepreneurs that are not dabbling in what we're dabbling in, us three.
Yeah.
Like they may own something and they've been successful and they have one business and, you know, beyond that, you know, but serial entrepreneur, like you're looking for startups, you're looking for opportunities, you're looking, you know, you're mentoring and coaching people in the grind.
Yeah.
That is like different level entrepreneur. That's like, you know, and we enjoy it.
A lot of people,
it's also a
lot of
level
people
up.
don't, I mean, like, I hate to say this, right? But a lot of business owners, like, they're tunnel visioned, right? It's like, all right, what do I need to do for my four walls? And that is important, right? But I think there's another type of entrepreneur like us who's like, all right, like we are worried about our own four walls, but we also need something more to make us satisfied, which is helping people. You know what I mean? Like helping people, helping businesses, like helping, like just helping. You
just
know what
helping,
I mean?
Leave it there because that's what it is.
Our skill set that we can provide help with happens to be in business,
which is in need.
It's a need.
It's a huge need, and it's a tremendous amount of business capital, right? And that is lacking, I think, in the marketplace, especially in the realms of how people are helped who need to move forward. And I think that there's a misperception from the outside looking in too, right? Because you talked about like, what do you do? Because once you say you're an entrepreneur or a serial entrepreneur, all of a sudden all these preconceptions come in. Yeah. Oh, you must have a super cush life and all this other stuff, right?
Certain people have sold that. Certain people sold that's what it is.
Yeah.
And there's this segment of entrepreneurs like ourselves that are saying, no. Have you ever been kicked in the stomach, punched in the face, risk, a lot of money, at risk of putting stress on your marriage, at risk of all these different things like
your own health.
And then do you still want to do it? And they're like, no. I mean, well, then it probably saved you, a lot of money and a lot of headache, And I think, but I also think that image is the results of the process, and people look at the results, not the process. That's what they focus on. The Mercedes Benz and the 5-car garage, and which is great, Well,
and
great.
You can have it.
Yeah, you can have it, and I don't think you should be ashamed to have it. That'd be great.
Right.
But I also think that, and you've probably met these guys before. That's all they talk about is where they're at and how they've got, not how they've got there, but what they have mainly, right? Like, I don't want to hear about all that. Like, great, you have all that. I have stuff too. Like, right. But like, how'd you get to where you're at?
Dude, all the guys that I dealt with, like on Wall Street for those years, like that's it, right? Like, it's all about just
clout.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's clout.
And they think, right? The problem is that you're in an echo chamber where it's like,
right,
like everybody's got clout, and if you don't have clout, then all of a sudden you feel differently about it, and you're like, well, I need clout. You know what I mean? I need that, or I need that, or I need that. And at the end of the day, like you're trying to impress this very, very small group of people that are the most, and I don't say this lightly, the most miserable people with their own lives. Yeah. Right. Like, and we're talking alcoholics, cocaine, strippers, right? Like the things that sometimes, like, I mean, if you're on like, oh, that sounds amazing. No, it's terrible, right? Like, you see a 50-year-old dude at a strip club at 3:00 in the morning. You know what I mean? Like,
rough life.
Like that's miserable, And that's so I think, right? Like, we all focus on, oh, that's a great cake. You know what I mean? Or we don't focus on what did it take to make that cake. You know what I mean? Like, it's normal flour, it's normal sugar, it's normal baking powder, like the stuff.
One that I like the most is, you have like business A who's struggling and business B who's flourishing, and a person sees both from the outside. They say, well, look at business, this B is like flourishing, or you own a business and you be flourishing too. I mean, you're struggling. You could barely pay your bills.
Right.
Like, but like that B business was A, just went through the process and is there now, you know? So I think that it's less glamorous to talk about those things, failure, strife, you know, all the things that build character and build those skill sets that get you to success, right? But no, I mean, there's a huge superficial wave of people that are easily sold on everything that doesn't matter.
Agreed. And that's why I think this show is for those people that want to know, right? Like, how do you take your business from A to B? You know what I mean? Like, what needs to happen in my day-to-day life and my month-to-month and my quarter-over-quarter, year-over-year? What are the things that I need to work on to take me from A to B, or to take me from, hey, I think I want to be an entrepreneur and I've got this crazy idea and I want to be successful, right? Like, we focus on what are the steps to get there, not what does it look like once you're there, right?
Yeah.
Because success is, everybody's success is defined differently. You know what I mean? Like, my success now at 42 is I can pay my bills, I can live comfortably, I get to spend time with my family, I get to go on a family vacation. I'm not going to Miami and partying, right? I'm going to a quiet beach town and riding bicycles with my kids, right? And so I don't want to put the big spotlight on this is what it looks like. You're super successful for these one certain people. I want to say, hey man, like, woman, whatever, you want to start a business? Great. You have a business? Great. You want to be more successful? Great. Let us help you, show you the way from people who have been there and done that to show you how to be successful and teach you how to overcome some of the struggles that you're inevitably going to face.
Because we haven't been perfect and we've made a ton of mistakes 100%. And we learned from them.
100%.
That's the key though.
I'm batting maybe 175.
Yeah. Shit, I'm not even batting
You know
that.
what I mean? But like, when you've been doing it for a certain amount of time and you've tried so many different things, like 175 ain't bad. You know
when you think about it, it's not like 10 things that have to go right.
Right.
You just have to have that one idea, that one business, that one, you know, business with legs, I guess you would call it. And then that opens up other avenues to help other people invest in other businesses, you know?
Yeah. And helping other people isn't just helping them to have one aspect of this entire irresistible life met. Because then what happens when everything else is in shambles? Like that is, you just give it away to get back what really matters. In fact, you know, you guys hear it all the time. You watch a YouTube video and somebody will introduce like some story of a billionaire. It's like, this person's so successful because they're a billionaire. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, is that the measure
Yeah.
of success? Because let's peel back some layers. Like, what's their life look like?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that that's not necessarily the case, but this particular story, this particular billionaire, like, I don't know how many marriages and just like life on the rocks and miserable and like contemplating suicide. And it's like, that does not look appealing or attractive to me at all in the least bit. So let's call it out. Let's look at what an irresistible life looks like as someone in business, as an entrepreneur. And of course, the financial component is an important, essential component, but it is just one piece of an entire picture of what a life looks like that I want to get up every morning and be like, I love this life. And on top of that, you can't possibly hope to inspire others to live irresistibly in your organization if you're a poser.
Correct.
You know, if you're out there like, boy, you know, I work for this guy and he's totally miserable, and boy, I don't know where this. I mean, they don't even know where your company's going.
He's got a nice car.
Yeah, he's got a nice car and he takes really cool vacations, right?
But he hates his life.
But he hates his life.
Apparently, everybody can have a nice car these days. Because like when I was growing up, it was like you never seen like a Lamborghini in your life. Now like everyone on Facebook and Instagram has a Lamborghini. It's it's true though. I've never seen like this many before.
Right.
Like this was like the ultimate in like status. Like you pulled up in this Lamborghini, right? When we were kids, I mean, it on the wall.
Yeah.
You know, and now it's like, where's this?
I was like, hey, I got to spare $5,000 a month. Let me go lease this thing. Basically. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yeah. You know, a story my dad taught me when I was really young has always stuck with me. So before he started a business, he was a finance guy in a bank, right? So he had this older guy who made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, made a lot of money, right? And so he's sitting down talking to him one day, and the guy was like, listen, he's like, whether I've got $10 in the bank or I've got 10 million in the bank, he's like, it's all zeros, right? He's like, I'm not going to live my life worried about a zero. And like, made sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, I want to be happy. Like, and so, you know, money is important because you have to pay for things. Mm-hmm. That's it, right? Like, you have to pay for things.
Right.
You die, you don't take your money with you, right? You don't take all these things with you. And so money is important, and I don't ever want to give away or pretend like I don't think money is important, but it's not everything.
No,
it's definitely not everything.
It can be everything.
Well,
because I feel like if you're chasing, I mean, yeah, you can be successful chasing zeros. You can, but you're not going to be passionate about it.
You're not going to be happy.
You're going to be happy.
Because how many zeros do you need?
Yeah, I know guys that have made a lot of money doing something that they absolutely hate.
Yeah. Spend 40 years doing something you hate, right?
Just sounds miserable.
Yeah, no, right. Like, and most of those rich guys, when they're on their deathbed, would probably give up all that money to do it over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I'm going to point the listener back, if you haven't listened to episode 6, because episode 6 was part of our initial course on leadership. And episode 6 is all about profit and purpose.
Yeah.
And what we outline in that episode is that there's all different profit centers. You know, and really what profit means, it just means gain, right? So like there's relational profit centers, right? There's the legacy that I leave. There's the financial profit center. So like when we talk about being profitable, you know, built to profit, what we're talking about is not just dollars, because and honestly, here's another thing that I'm going to challenge is that it's selling yourself too short. Because it's a formula. If you want to make money in a business, then you put a formula together to make money. Yes, there's arduous parts, but you can make that money. But the heavy lifting is living a life that is fruitful in other areas too, with your family, you know, with your friendships, in your own life where you wake up in the morning and you're not like totally miserable because you have no time for yourself, or you've given yourself zero margin. You've set unrealistic expectations for what life should look like. I mean, all of that fits into having a real profitable life. So that goes far beyond just like getting into business because, oh, wow, this guy's got a jet and he's hanging out with celebrities and all this other stuff. It's fun. It's fun. Yeah.
It's just fun.
It's just fun.
That's it.
That's it.
That's where it starts and stops.
But after a while, it's not even fun anymore.
Doesn't even matter anymore.
Like,
man.
It doesn't matter. And I just, you know, I wish our society would get away from this. Look at me, Instagram. You know what I mean?
It's
like
made
this
it worse.
mentality.
It's made it worse.
That it's just like you need all this stuff, right, to be happy, because the majority of people aren't going to get all that stuff, right? The average person makes what? $45,000.
65 grand is a
right?
family medium.
Family
income.
medium, right? Family medium, right?
And at least in this region.
$65,000 a year. Like that, that person is never going to touch that stuff.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that isn't a successful life that person has, you know? That person could have an extraordinarily successful life.
You like it. Or like, hey, I like having, you know, this.
Right.
And whether but you know, having it's still material and it's still not what's important, but you have it.
Well, and then what happens? Let's just call it out, guys. You know, we've all had nice new cars or a fancy watch or whatever. After 2-3 weeks,
it just loses its buzz.
It's your car.
It's a car.
It's your car. Yeah, it's still fun to drive and all this other stuff, but new stuff loses the excitement of newness.
Absolutely.
You know? And it's like, okay, well, if I'm putting if I'm laying it on the line that my happiness and my joy is tied up in this, man, it's gonna be a losing game every time because I'm gonna have to keep one-upping it. And so I don't want to live like that. Now, granted, if you can buy it, have fun with it, whatever. Yeah. I mean, I have, you know, we all have nice stuff, right? But it doesn't define.
It can't define you. That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
Yeah, because as soon as it defines you, you become that. I mean, it really becomes like this.
You're a slave to it.
Yeah.
Like you're a slave. You're a slave to that. And like,
or it just becomes really kind of superficial. Like, that's what I've noticed. Like, if you have things and people know you have things, and then it's like they kind of look at you almost different. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's good or it's bad.
I've never been impressed with all the zeros, and I'm glad you brought that up because I use that same terminology. The zeros behind the one in someone's bank account. What truly inspires me is what others can do to help others with it. Right now, and it's between you and God, and whatever you do with your money. But it just doesn't do anything for me because I think that, man, the biggest contribution I can make on this planet is knowing that whatever I've been gifted and trusted with, that I can turn around and do good with and help. And I think that is, for our ideal listener, right? Our ideal avatar is someone who wants to go deeper, who wants to run the business life in a way that is fruitful and honoring, that is transparent, and ultimately that leads them to wake up every morning and be thankful for another day.
Agreed.